Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. I'm your director, Christian Buckley, joined by the Apex legend, Jack Martin, for your episode for October 17th.
Excelsior, Christian. A much more optimistic Excelsior than last week.
Agree. Obviously, last week there was a ton of questions. We didn't get a War Table blog until after we recorded. For
Love
some
to see
strange
it.
reason. But yeah, there were a lot of questions last week. We do have a lot of answers this week. I wouldn't say they're crystal clear answers, but we do have answers that we're going to get to.
They're talking to us.
They are. That's really all we could have asked for. That's really all we were asking for at the end of last week. It was like, hey, just say something.
Yeah, pretty much. They at least did that, so that's nice.
So we, of course, will get to all of that stuff. But before we dive into Fury's report, how you doing, Jack?
I'm good. It's a nice fall afternoon here where we live. It's a little bleak outside, which is nice this time of year. I like some gray clouds, a little bit of stormy skies. It's pretty nice. How you doing?
Good. I'm in a good mood for the exact same reason you just said. I woke up, there was fog outside. I was disappointed that it went away, but now we get to talk about Avengers. So it's not a bad day, you know.
It truly is the type of weather we're looking for in the Northeast around this time of year. So
Absolutely.
real good.
Well, without further ado, let's dive into Fury's report for the week, starting out with priority missions, which are detailed every week in the War Table blog. This week, there's none, because the new content is what's taking front and center stage. They said, hey, we took them away, they're not in the War Table this week, but they're not gone. So just, here's the new stuff. Strange choice?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's like inconsistent from what they've been doing, but I mean, honestly, the priority missions don't really matter despite their name.
Yeah.
So it's fine. I understand why they are doing it, so they can focus on the new content. So it seems like it's only a week-long thing, so whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, so we'll get back to that next week. But, of course, priority harm rooms are still in the rotation for this week. If you do one of them, it will net you Avengers number 4 from 1963. Again, I don't really track my comic sets, but I do the comic book harm room every single week just to add to the collection, because might as well.
Yeah. I almost never do, but I probably should.
I mean, it takes like 10 minutes max, you know, and you get some boosted stuff out of it, so it's not the worst thing.
Right.
We do have the Mega Hive modifiers for the week, though. Despite there being no priority missions in modifiers, the modifiers for this week's Mega Hive run are Resurgence, so enemy health regenerates after a short delay; Torpedo, projectile damage from any source is greatly increased; Heavyweight, enemy stun meters build at an increased rate; and Turmoil, significantly increased presence of riot bots. So, you know, reading that list, I'm wondering if there's ever going to be like a meta strategy on what week to run the Mega Hive. You know?
I'm going to say no, because I almost never pay attention to these things.
Yeah.
I think that might be maybe down the line, like during like the raids or whatever, where that might be super important. I will, but I really don't right now.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I think you can look into it and like change some of your gear around if you have any different like stats laying around that correspond to some of the benefits laid out here. But I almost never pay attention to it.
Yeah, I rarely do either. But you might want to, because now there's absolutely a reason to endure the gauntlet of the Mega Hive. Because this week we got patch 1.3.3. Out of nowhere, dropped on Wednesday, I believe, Wednesday afternoon. And it is what introduced the new content for the week, which we will get to in a moment. But it also made some vital quality of life changes. So Jack, why don't you run us through what 1.3.3 did for us?
Sure. So the the main sort of quality of life improvements that you were mentioning was, one, you can run around in the headquarters now, or the outpost rather, which makes it getting around much easier, especially on the helicarrier, which is pretty big. So that's good. It makes the area where you can pick up drops increased, so like you don't have to be right on it. Like if I'm Iron Man, I can fly in the line of the drop, so that's cool. And the biggest thing is the guaranteed 2 exotics you get when you complete the Mega Hive.
Yes.
Which
yeah.
makes it actually worth doing.
Even more than that, it makes me, who was screwed out of completing the Mega Hive, incentivized to do it all over again.
Definitely. We talked about this last week and maybe even the week before, our experiences with the Mega Hive. Like, you had a very unfortunate experience that was not your fault, and I completed the Mega Hive and got nothing worth even mentioning. So this is a huge incentive to do it week by week, and I probably will start doing that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a reason now. Like before it was, hey, if you want to get an exotic, that's your best bet. You still don't have a 100% chance. But now, the fact that it is there, it is incentivizing you to play that content. And I think the way we talk about priority harm missions, or priority missions in general, not being what the title is, it feels like now the Mega Hive has a reason to be your priority. If you're getting that good of a piece of gear out of it 2 times, and it does have all those things that change week to week in terms of modifiers, that's, like you said, I think it's something that's going to become more of a focus now that there's meaningful rewards behind it.
Yeah, definitely. For next episode, I'll probably complete this week's Mega Hive.
I think I will too. I almost started it this morning, so there's a good chance that I do it also.
Yeah, and we'll get to it later, but there's kind of an update to potential multiplayer Mega Hives.
Yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit about what else came with patch 1.3.3? That is the new content. So this week, for our experience, my Thor, I'm still floating around 145 because I don't want to commit to anything yet. I have issues fully diving in on something because it feels permanent.
Especially now that you can get exotics. So you're
Yeah.
probably just like, oh man. Even like push that was probably pushed back even more so. But
Yeah.
you could be a level 150. You're just
I'm
exercising a lot of restraint.
I'm choosing not to. Yeah, because like
Yeah.
I was 150 or 145 going into the game earlier today because I booted it up again for the first time in like a week and a half, and for some reason I got the Reach Collective 250 levels trophy. When I booted
Nice.
it up, I did nothing. Like the trophy screenshot is on a loading screen. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, sometimes like the game bugs trophies in your benefit where it'll just be like randomly pop up. I've noticed with a few of mine. Be like, oh, all right, I'll take it.
So I did dive into that. I got to explore a little bit about the new area, as well as the Tachyon Rift, which is the new Warzone mission type. And I was rewarded with some cosmic gear. So my Thor dropped down to a level 140 just because the cosmic gear I got was not. One was legendary, one was epic. So I haven't upgraded either of them yet outside of their initial level increase. So I get the second perk, which did have the cosmic energy tied to it. But yeah, that cosmic gear, man, it's interesting. Did you get a chance to get your hands on cosmic gear yet?
This is the first time I'm hearing about it, actually. I also did the Tachyon Rift. Maybe I wasn't paying attention to the reward, but could you explain that to me and the listeners?
Sure. So to my understanding, so Tachyon Riffs, again, the new Warzone, which is basically you're on a timer that's constantly counting down, and there are portals throughout the environment that if you fly through will give you a time buff. If you kill enemies, you'll get a time buff. Meanwhile, the entire time you're playing this mission, which again, the time allowance is like 2 minutes when you boot it up, for the one I played at least, your health is also decreasing, like, slightly over time. So there's a lot of pressure for you to just like be fast and furious about the way you play it. Story wise, lore wise, it's dealing with time manipulation, rifts in time, space time, stuff like that, which I'm sure will have some sort of integration with future content story wise. But this mission structure is the only way for you to get cosmic gear. And what cosmic gear is essentially the same type of. It's basically the equivalent of like pin particle gear or gamma gear or cryo gear,
I
where
see.
it's nothing super special. It's just a new elemental type that will allow you to have elemental buffs and attacks based on how you upgrade it.
Do you know what the effect is? Like, for example, the pin particles make enemies smaller with certain like range attacks. Do you know like what the equivalent is for cosmic gear?
So, from my understanding, I messed around with my Thor two pieces of cosmic gear build in a harm room after I got it, and what I could gather from at least my setup was the perks that I had were triggered on light signature attacks. So when I do the hammer spin, and what it does is for the status effect, it basically is like a life steal for your enemy. So
Oh,
if you get the effect bar on them full completely, they will feed into your willpower and it will drain their life.
so you're like Zubat essentially.
Yes, yeah, doing some leech life.
Yeah.
But what I think is really helpful about that gear set and why I might try to pursue a full cosmic effect set as a potential loadout is because of the mega hives. So if I'm doing attacks and depending on what attack the perk is tied to, I'll be able to constantly be getting willpower back if I'm killing people in the mega hive running solo. You know, a nice way to earn health back.
Yeah, that's a really cool perk associated with that gear type. So that's a really good addition, I think. I might mess around with that.
Yeah, the bummer is that if it is only tied to the Tachyon Riffs, then I don't think there's a chance, unless I'm misunderstanding something, I don't think there's a chance for me to get an exotic cosmic gear thing, because I don't know what the odds of a exotic are to drop from a Tachyon Rift Warzone if the only surefire way to do it is with the Mega Hive and the Mega Hive, like if Cosmic is only tied to Tachyon, you know, like it's a weird
Yeah.
question of like, so what are my odds? Is it possible at all, or is it just I'm out of luck right now?
Yeah, it might be luck based at that point. And I haven't had any exotic drops ever, aside from major artifacts, so might be looking bleak.
Yeah. So I know you didn't really get a chance to experience the Cosmic Gear, but in terms of the Tachyon Rift mission, what did you think of it? Like, I personally thought that the pressure was nice. It wasn't drastically different from other war zones we played so far in that the objectives are similar, but I think the added flame beneath you was refreshing personally.
Gotta say, I don't think I'll ever play that again.
Really? Okay.
I just don't think, aside from maybe like getting Cosmic Gear and messing around with that, I don't think it's worth it. Because it is just the same mission. I played. Were you in the Utah Badlands?
Yes,
Was
because
that yeah?
worth noting, there is a quest chain for the Tachyon Rifts, but I believe they said it's going to be similar to the villain sectors where it's one per day.
Yeah. So it's essentially just like the mission in the Utah Badlands with a time trial, and I'm not a fan of that. I don't love the pressure, like what you were mentioning. I think it feels a little tacked on. Like it's just kind of the mission plus this other thing you have to pay attention to, and I don't think the rewards are that worthwhile of doing. So I will probably just not play them again. This wasn't really the step in the direction of new content that I think this game really needs, because it is more recycled content, granted in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't really do anything for me.
I got when I loaded it up, because the thing is, I think I didn't read in depth about it beforehand. I just was going off of the short blurbs they gave as a description of like enter the Tachyon Riffs to continue your time and stuff like that. I thought it was gonna be like you walk into like the eye of a hurricane and it's a like a gauntlet of like a survive in this arena as long as you can, and then if you get thrown out, you gotta like earn this to get back in. Like I thought that's kind of the way they were pitching it. That is absolutely not what this is.
Yeah, I wish it was.
Right, because it sounded like the way it was being teed up, it might have been something that drastic, but no, you're right. It's a new modifier for content we have played through before. I do think it makes you play it differently, where to an extent, because like at first in that first objective of like get to these servers, open them, break them, then get into the elevator. I was like, oh, cool. I'm just going to power through this area. I'm going to fly through these rifts, increase my time, do the objective, hop in the elevator. I did the objective, and it was like, okay, now secure the area still. So I was like, oh, okay. like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you where I don't think it's what the game needed. I think it's nice that there's a new option, and I do like the idea of the cosmic modifier or the cosmic sets. So like, I might run it a few times just to try and get some more cosmic gear just to have in my inventory. But yeah, it's not anywhere near as refreshing as something like a raid would be right now.
Definitely. But yeah, other than that, for my experience this past week, I completed all the challenge cards. I finished Hulk and Thor's. Thank you very much. So we have everything that the game offers in terms of that in the bag. So that's good.
Fantastic. That is an achievement.
Thank you. You know how I like going after these little items here and there and checking off boxes, so that's what I did.
Were you disappointed or were you happy that there were no boxes to check off with the new social area?
With the shield substation?
Yes.
You know, it kind of feels empty in a way. Because there's really not much there that I noticed. Did notice Dum Dum Dugan sitting down with a shotgun.
Out.
So there he is. Literally no, there was nothing pointing me in the direction of him or no like, hey, that's Dum Dum. He was just there. So that was a little strange. But I feel like this might be in preparation of Kate.
I think you're correct, yeah. I think actually in the Kate story trailer from the last War Table, it showed Maria Hill's office, I think. So, yeah, what's puzzling to me is with the substation is like, what's the point of the helicarrier now?
Exactly. They moved like a bunch of shield stuff from
like is
from
it
the
just
helicarrier.
is it just to go see the Avengers hanging around? Like, is that it now? And because the wild thing is, yes, they added these terminals, so if you're on the helicarrier, you can communicate with the anthill and claim your faction bounties and stuff like that, or achievements or challenges or whatever they are. But now, if you go to the helicarrier, you can't talk to Morales or Sydney, and there's no terminal to talk to them, so you have to go to the substation if you want to talk to them. So, like,
Now,
what is the point of the helicarrier?
you know, it makes everything seem even more spread out, and the fact that the vendor, the cosmetic vendor is there is just like the only thing tying you to actually going to the helicarrier. And that's super annoying because if you want to like see what like the daily rotation is or like the weekly rotation, you probably go to the new shield substation, and then you probably go to the helicarrier to check out the vendor. But that's just another step that feels unnecessary.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't understand it. Like, if you're gonna go as far as to put a terminal in, might as well do it in both places. Like, I don't know. But yeah, that is our experience for the week. That is the new content that is in the game at the moment. So why don't we move on to some stark realities and talk about the state of the game. First up, good news. Avengers was the best-selling game for the month of September, and it is the 7th best-selling game for all of 2020.
Well done, well done. Now, the second part of that strikes me as very interesting, because I think Animal Crossing's number one, correct?
I believe so. I can fact check this. I'm pulling this from the NPD group, Matt Piscatella
Right.
on Twitter. Excellent follow if you're interested in how video game sales work. Very, very interesting nuggets every month. But
Yeah, I'm
yeah, I can
interested to
check.
see what's ahead of that. We don't have to necessarily do that because this isn't necessarily a games industry podcast, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. Like we definitely knew that this was going to be a very successful game. And I think it launched at a great time considering that this was supposed to come out in two different windows that were right next to Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
And thankfully, even when they both got delayed to September, Cyberpunk got delayed out of September. So I think this had a lot of breathing room to sort of, occupy the space of that month because there wasn't that much aside from Tony Hawk that was releasing in the same month. And those two are definitely different types of experiences. So, yeah, congrats to Crystal Dynamics and to, why am I
Square.
blanking? Square, yeah.
So I have the list. Marvel's Avengers is 7th place. That is behind 6th, Final Fantasy VII Remake, 5th, Ghost of Tsushima, 4th, Madden 21, 3, Last of Us Part 2, 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons, not reporting digital sales on that one, which is important to note. And then number 1 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So
Yeah.
from January to the end of September, that is how the best-selling games have netted out. The reason I bring this up is because you are correct. We knew this game was going to sell very well. I think there is a sort of safety net in terms of, okay, we see what they're going to talk about today with the state of the game. We see how the game sold. I think we have a guaranteed at least 8 months to a year of solid foundation still because of how it performed,
Yeah, they have the player base
Yeah.
that they can continue to grow and sort of update for. So that's good. And it's worth noting, I think Matt Piscatella in his tweet said that this debuted at number 7. So this has, correct me if I'm wrong, but this has the ability to seemingly like increase over time. So like it launches at number 7, and with increased sales, it could continue climbing the ranks, right?
Yeah, and another fact as well, launch month dollar sales, so just counting all the money it made, Marvel's Avengers is the second highest for any superhero game in history, trailing Spider-Man PS4. So the game sold well. So if anyone was worried about that, I don't think you have to be worried.
Yeah.
But what is a little worrying, perhaps, is those people that were waiting to dive into this experience on next gen. Because in the state of the game that was posted on the Avengers website, written up by Scott Amos, the next gen version of the game has been delayed to 2021.
Rip.
So, basically, you'll still be able to play Avengers on your PS5 if you own the PS4 version. You're going to be able to play it on your Xbox. You're going to get whatever slight boost you would get from another PS4 game. But we've optimized this for next gen. Super better loading times. This, that, and the third. That is going to be a 2021 update. Still for free, but it is no longer hitting this year.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Our friend Kevin Diaz from PlayStation Source, who has the game already, has kind of fallen off with it, from my understanding. And
he did beat the campaign. Worth noting.
Right. But he hasn't really been playing too much as far as I know. And after that, and he was messaging us this morning saying he is basically just going to wait until the next gen upgrade to sort of pick it up again. Which honestly is probably a good idea for people like him, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in that situation where the end game content didn't really catch them and there wasn't too much to do. If you wait until the next gen upgrade, presumably and hopefully, you'll probably have a much better experience with the game because there's going to be, like I said, hopefully a lot more content available. and that's all free to you. So I think that'll be good. It is unfortunate that we don't get that right away, the upgrade, because it obviously would be nice to have for next gen, like only a month away. So that is unfortunate, but by the time we do get it, I think there'll be a good amount of content to have.
You make several good points, but for all of us out here in the early days of this game, we're going to get rewarded, Jack. I don't know if you saw this.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is being quoted directly from the State of the Game post. As a sign of our appreciation for being with us from the very start of this journey, beginning 10 a.m. Pacific Time, October 22nd, players will receive a digital thank you bundle, which includes 1,500 credits, which I believe is what you get from a full character pass, which is enough for a legendary skin and nameplate from the marketplace. You get 7,000 units, 250 upgrade modules. I'm just swimming in those right now. 20 DNA keys.
Yeah.
And, of course, a Sarah Garza inspired nameplate. Because seriously, you're the best.
That's amazing.
That is like, it's a whatever looking nameplate, but man, that is going to be like a badge of honor in 2 years.
It is very generic, but that is pretty cool. Now, worth noting, for the DNA keys, if you open the boxes to the DNA chests on the most challenging vault, which is, I think you can do like challenge 4, you get 15 upgrade modules. So 20 times 15 is 300 upgrade modules. So you essentially get 550 upgrade modules, including the 250.
Damn. And we've already been gifted some of those already because of like some botches. Man, I'm going to be set for life with upgrades.
You will definitely have enough to upgrade a lot of pieces. So that's cool.
Yeah. Worth noting as well, because again, all these people that want to wait until next gen, this bundle is only available until 10 a.m. Pacific on November 5th. So if you are playing the game, if you're taking a break, worth signing on between October 22nd and November 5th. So you can make sure you get all your goodies for being there early in the life of this game. Let's get to the bad news, the other bad news next. And then I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So the other bad news in the state of the game is Kate got pushed out of October.
Very sad.
Wah wah.
Yep.
She's now hitting in November. There's no straight up word about this, but I think it's safe to assume Clint is also getting pushed slightly.
Yeah, probably.
Because if they want to, we're all operating under the assumption they kind of seem to be positioning themselves to be dropping like a character a month for the next few months, a significant content piece as well. So if Black Panther and Wakanda was supposed to be December, I would assume it's like, okay, you know what, maybe we hold that until January and then we just hit the double feature Hawkeye event for the final 2 months of the year. Like, it stings. I was excited to play as Kate. I still am excited to play as Kate, but now I will probably upgrade a second character. I'll probably get Widow to max level next to Thor.
Yeah. It is unfortunate, and I really, like we've been saying this game sort of needed that injection of new content right about now. As players have been dropping off, specifically on PC. We don't really have numbers for like PS4 or Xbox One. Obviously, the game, like we mentioned, sold really well, so that base is still there. But yeah, I feel like just from the sort of Reddit and the overall feel from the player base seems to be a lot of boredom. And even the new content that we got today and recently wasn't the boost that the game needs. And definitely seems like Kate and Hawkeye eventually from Clint will hopefully fill that void, and I think it will. And we also don't even have like the raid equivalent or any like Omega threat level stuff that they've been mentioning. So it is sad, but I do think the state of the game update written by Scott Amos was excellently written and the exact sort of communication that we needed from the development team this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, there is bad news in here. It's a bummer. I would prefer them take their time. They did cite the rough, rocky few weeks post launch as the reason for the delay. Like, there were more important things to address, as we've talked about in the past few weeks on this show, in terms of launching new content or updating and fixing stuff. Which again, it's still not perfect, but they're still working on that, and I do appreciate the communication, especially last week where that was such an area of concern for both of us. But I believe, unless I'm missing anything, I think that's all the bad news.
Yeah, I think like the other sort of bad news is the confirmation of like, hey, like all the raid content and like this cloning labs or whatever is kind of also a ways off. We don't even know when that's coming. So.
Yeah. I want to. Yeah. Okay. They do have another line which I thought was interesting, sort of addressing what you were just mentioning, talking about Clint, sort of what we were assuming from Kate. They said we're going to talk about more of him later, and looking into 2021, our biggest Avengers Initiative edition yet will introduce a new hero, region, and narrative arc. So I think that is also safe to assume that Wakanda and the Wakanda raid is most likely the looking into 2021 segment, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's what that is.
But yeah, in terms of the Omega level threats specifically, like you mentioned, there is no set date yet. Maybe there's no set date because we hear about it next week. I don't know, but yeah, I think that's all the bad news.
Right.
In terms of looking forward, though, they do have a few other confirmations about what to expect in terms of updates. They mentioned in the patch notes from a few days ago that they're actively testing the next patch, and the next patch they're looking to include the ping system, which has been talked about for a while, being able to replay the reassemble campaign, a high contrast mode for text, hero icon visibility, so we don't have to constantly spam up on the D-pad for situational awareness, mission reward clarity, so that involves mission-specific rewards being showcased in more depth on the war table, and then off-screen enemy attack indicators. So when these rockets get shot your way, you're not just going to get sidelined from one.
I think for me, I think the biggest one is the reassemble campaign replay. Always thought that was weird that once you finish it, you couldn't replay it. I've never heard that in a game. That's not like Fallout or whatever. So yeah, I think that's good. I think it should have been there from the beginning, but whatever. We have it now finally. So that's nice. I may want to jump back in at some point, and hopefully we have the option just to like jump through mission to mission.
Yeah.
But I think that's good. I think, like I said, I think it should have been at the beginning, but at least we have it.
Yeah. Again, I'll bring this as a point of comparison. I know back in the day with Destiny 1, you were able to replay campaign missions. They eventually took that out and sort of started cycling them in as like, hey, this week you can play these 3 missions from the campaign. So sort of like what they've been doing here with the priority missions to an extent. Obviously, those aren't full campaign missions, but yeah, it's nice to at least see the option that's there, even if it's not like a new game plus. Maybe running through on a higher difficulty would be nice. But yeah, other than that, because there's a lot of nitty gritty stuff here. There's some PC updating posts about performance. They're working with NVIDIA on some stuff. They're continuing to improve multiplayer. Is there anything that super stands out to you? I know there was one thing you mentioned that you found very interesting.
Yeah, it was the potential for the Mega Hive to be to sort of like offer that as like a multiplayer experience instead of just the single player Mega Hive thing that they have going. So yeah, basically they were just saying like a lot of people were clamoring for sort of more multiplayer content, and this came out decidedly as a single player piece of content. So they were basically saying like, we hear you, and in the coming months we're sort of working towards making that a reality. So that's cool. Like if you and I once a week could run through the Mega Hive and get our exotics, that'd be awesome. I think that's a great way of doing like a weekly game session.
Yeah, I think that's really solid. And even if for people who don't have as much of a time commitment, you can still set aside like, hey, if we're gonna play with my buddies, there's what, 5 levels of the gauntlet? 7? What is it? 8?
I think it's 8.
Okay, so maybe one night you double up, but then you could do one a night after that.
Yeah.
You know, because they do let you bop around between other stuff just as long as you don't die. So yeah, the introduction of multiplayer into that could be very interesting. Other than that, though, is there any final thoughts you have on the state of the game or the update or transparency from this week? Any pieces of info we haven't covered that you want to address?
Tying it into the weather conversation we had earlier, Christian, I think the state of the game without the taking the communication we got this morning out of it is somewhat bleak. There's not a lot of new content that they added since the game launched, and the ones that sort of they have included are more repetitious than I would like them to be. That said, with the communication we got in the state of the game update from Scott Amos, I think that is some excellent communication, and I urge you all to read through that because it's very detailed, and you can tell that they're taking the feedback from the community to heart, and I think that will guide the game to a brighter future, hopefully.
Yeah, I co-sign all that because it's very clear that they have a plan. Launch, I bet they wish they could have delayed the game again, but for one reason or another they couldn't. So focusing on that, focusing on making the foundation as strong as possible, and promising and being very transparent about plans, the future, that's a great sign. Even if it's bad news, I'm very glad they're being vocal about it and being like, hey, we understand. This is the plan. We know you don't like this. We're going to fix this. It's like, I appreciate that at this moment in time more than any piece of new content right now. Obviously, I'd love more stuff to do in the game at the moment, but knowing it's coming, knowing they realize what the game needs to thrive is hopeful again, because this isn't a game that exists only right now. It's a game that is going to improve and exist 5 months from now or a year from now, you know? So like knowing they have that foresight, knowing that there is clearly a plan here is very reassuring. Even though right now it's a little cloudy, you know?
Yeah, well said, well said. I am hoping that one day they release a strict roadmap, because they didn't intend for this to be a roadmap, because there aren't like any set dates or whatever, and it's a little more muddled than maybe people might want. But I hope one day, hopefully early 2021, they say, like, they give like an infographic that I'm thinking of like when Kevin Feige came out in, I think it was like phase 2 or phase 3 of Marvel, and like literally had the infographic of what was planned. I think it was phase 3 with like Civil War and all that. So I hope it's like list month by month, like new hero with like a question mark, and like you can expect this coming out as well. So even something like very general, I would really appreciate, and I hope that comes soon.
Yeah, I would expect that whenever they get around to doing another video war table, that's there, considering the last war table presentation did say the next one would have the roadmap. Maybe that just got pushed around a little bit because obviously they had to refocus and shift priorities in terms of what they're working on for Wayne, Kate, Clint, the raid. Like, I would like if by the end of this month we get that war table. I don't know if that is likely or not, but considering that they're window for these Omega level threats, which I think is probably the next significant content. They say in the coming weeks we'll introduce the missions. So yeah, I would hope that maybe end of October, early November, we get a new presentation with a little more clarity like we saw today. And yeah, if you said, like you said, maybe if they hit early 2021 with their MCU timeline equivalent, then we're golden.
Yeah, from reading this, it seems like October for them is kind of like a wash. They were like, all right, we didn't get it. We didn't get it this time around. November, we're gonna be great. So I feel like we'll probably get all the big stuff in November, like with Kate and the Omega level stuff. They probably just need time to just really hone in and start fixing keep fixing the game, and then also like adding new stuff. So I think in the coming weeks, around early to mid-November, we'll start getting that stuff.
Oh, I already have a self-correction. At the end of this breakdown, for future content, they do detail our next Marvel's Avengers War Table in November.
There we go. Nice.
Missed that. So, I am hopeful despite taking a week and a half off the game. I think this week was a good reset, sort of remanaging, refocusing, centering expectations again. So yeah, I'm ready for more. But Jack, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, I think I really like the communication we're getting from them. It was very absent last week, and we were mentioning, like you were saying earlier in the show, that last week we were really more clamoring for communication than anything, really. And it seems like we really got it, and I think it was pretty honest, and I'm expecting we're going to get some similar sorts of communication and style from them in the coming months.
Absolutely. Well, until then, where can people find you?
You can follow me on social media at FascinatedJack. What about you, Christian?
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at Chris N. Buckley. This year's show is available on youtube.com/joyclicks if you want the video version. It's also available on podcast services like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, all your favorite ones. If you can rate or review on that platform, it would be greatly appreciated because it just takes a quick finger tap or like a mouse click. I don't know, maybe people will listen on desktop. And it helps the show out a ton because we are the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast, giving you your updates and everything you need to succeed in the game.
That's right.
So it's your job, the agents of Excelsior, to keep it that way. And shout out to the people who are constant every week. Always appreciate it. And if you want to get involved with the show or support the channel in greater ways, you can go to patreon.com/joyclicks, where for $1, $2, or $5 you can get involved. And at the $5 tier, you get producer credit like Chris Sakas and Aaron Easton. So thank you to you two. And I was thinking of doing a quick 10-second segment, and we can close on that.
Okay. What do we got?
So the segment is called Meanwhile... ...
Yeah.
You see this Spider-Man the cat?
Yeah, dude. Sure did.
Miles Morales. It's got a Spider-Man the cat. It's a cat that wears a Spider-Man mask in that game.
That's a day one purchase from me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's excellent. But until next week, Excelsior.
Excelsior.